So let me begin. Here we go. Yeah. Basically, did you know that there's more than one way that you can have a time and energy vampire? A TEV? There is. Most of the people, or excuse me, most of the time and energy vampires that you know that are in your life, they're mostly people, right? Or they're exclusively people. At the very least, when you think about time and energy vampires, you think about people. Because, well, a lot of people are. But people aren't the only ones who or which can be a time and energy vampire. There's also processes. There's also intangibles that can be time and energy vampires that can cause great havoc in your life. That can cause you to be miserable beyond comprehension. I'm going to illustrate that by telling you a short story about somebody who was, and I'm not going to reveal their names. I've done so elsewhere. But for this video, for this podcast, I'm not going to reveal their names simply because it doesn't really matter. What matters is the awful treatment that this individual was subjected to. So basically, here goes. In 2001, roughly, I think it was 2001, might have been 2000, but I believe it was in 2001. Two young girls, aged 8 and 10, were raped and killed. Horrible stuff, right? Obviously horrible stuff. It made national headlines, of course. I believe it even made international headlines. The whole country was enraged. The whole country was in turmoil. People were genuinely pissed and scared, especially those who had kids. I mean, could you imagine? Two innocent girls had to suffer through that horrible fate. Shortly after, I think 2 months or so after these horrible incidents had happened, two men were charged, sentenced, and then charged and found guilty and sentenced to prison for child rape and murder. Now, in my opinion, prison wasn't enough. In my opinion, those who commit such atrocious crimes should be killed. They should have their balls chopped off, their dick chopped off, and then get left to bleed to death. That's what I think. But I don't make the rules. Anyway, so two dudes, two blokes, get charged, sentenced, convicted for rape and murder. So it turns out years later, that one of the dudes couldn't have been at the actual place of the crimes when they occurred. There just were significant irregularities in the proof, in the proof against him. In other words, he was guilty. Excuse me, he was not guilty. He was innocent. He'd been serving in prison for 20 fucking years without being guilty, because he couldn't have been at the place of the murders when they took place. There was just no proof. Throughout his entire prison term, he denied all wrongdoing. He insisted on not having done anything. And in fact, he was the one being portrayed by the media and the press as, the worst of the two. Because the other one, who was his former friend, admitted to the murder and rape of at least one of the girls, and sort of like was portrayed as the kinder, innocent guy in this context, still in a perverse and disgusting way, but still, who was convinced by the evil guy, or the more evil guy, I guess, to go and commit these atrocious acts. When in reality, the kinder guy, the nicer guy of the two, he was really the one who did all of the murders, all the killing, all of the rape. The other guy, the guy who was later found to be not guilty, who was later exonerated and acquitted completely, he lost 20 years of his life. Because here's what happened, actually. some sort of court or some sort of board or council or commission for the reintroduction and the re-challenge, I guess, of somebody's court case, decided that, look, there are so many significant irregularities in this fella's case, we need to try him again in front of a court system. And he was found not guilty. In other words, he's not guilty. He didn't do these things. And yet he served 20 fucking years of his life in prison, all for nothing. And, being dragged through the court system for years and years, having his name and reputation smeared and being portrayed as the evil rapist, child killer, who he wasn't. That's a tremendous time and energy vampire right there. Think about it. Being dragged through the courts like this, having your name being associated with some of the most gruesome stuff on planet Earth, being on the minds of everyone. And in fact, when I'm thinking about the guy, even though I know he's not innocent, I know he's innocent, I know he didn't do these things because he's been acquitted by the court system, every single time I think of his name or I see his face, I associate it with the brutal murder and rape of a child, which is wrong. It's plain wrong, but that's just the consequence of being dragged through the court systems and being, left to rot, essentially, both proverbially and literally, in a prison, and having your name tarnished in such a horrible way. So, in closing, because this video or podcast has gone on for long enough, the point is simple. There can be intangible, non-human time and energy vampires, TEVs. Processes, court processes, and prison terms are obvious examples of that. So, with that being said, if you want to learn more about energy vampires, time and energy vampires, TEVs, get subscribed to my email list. The link to do so is below the episode description wherever you're watching or listening to this. And, I'll see you later.